Women share their harrowing sexual harassment stories. Mariela Demek named first executive chairperson of Cannabis Authority. Airport takes a stand against new vaccine travel rules. All this and more on Lovin Daily. Good evening and welcome to another edition of Lovin Daily. I'm Diacono, joined today by Darmanin and Demajo, and today we have a very special episode. We're going to be interviewing two of the 5 sharks from the new Shark Tank Malta, the new upcoming business reality show, Michael Bonello and Christabelle Camilleri. It's the first ever interview about this new show that's on everybody's lips, so stay tuned and let's see what they have to say about it. Until then, the issue of sexual harassment in Malta is still a major topic following the brutal murder of Paulina Dębska in Slema. More women are speaking quite openly about their own personal experiences. Two women spoke to Love in Malta. One of them recounted how back in 1998 a stranger had tried to rape her as she was walking back to her car after a night out in Parcheville, and that she only got away from it because she managed to scream at the top of her voice and other people and drew the attention of others. Another one said that a more recent encounter, that she was jogging in Slema by the memorial to Paulina Dębska herself, and 2 men just catcalled her with a derogatory term, and which said literally shocked her, seeing as it was right next to the memorial itself. So it's not even just the catcalling, but the sheer disrespect of it all. Clearly, it's an issue in Malta. Lise, what do you think about it?
I think if you speak to 100 different women, you'll hear 100 different stories. I think at some point in time, every woman experiences, or most women unfortunately experience, some sort of situation that makes them extremely uncomfortable, that is a complete infringement of their personal space and of their rights just to be out in public without drawing unnecessary attention to yourself. Just today we were getting so many accounts from the public of their own personal stories. It had me thinking about things that I haven't thought about in years, to be honest, but I remember clearly I was about maybe 16, 17 years old, walking home in Sweetie, a very densely populated residential area, and there was a man just in someone's driveway masturbating as I walked past. No care in the world as to who saw him or how that might affect me. There are other situations that I remember on public transport. The truth is that the problem was always there, it is still there. And this particular story of the jogger today, I think that she was at the memorial paying her respects to this horrible murder, and the men thought nothing about absolutely disrespecting the whole issue and just passing the comment that they did towards her body. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said, Tim, there's a lot to be done, there's a lot of work here, and a lot of work needs to be done from the ground up, educating men to be a lot more respectful and a lot more sensitive to women and these issues.
Yes, exactly.
Moving on to another story today. So Mariela Demek has been appointed the executive chairman of Malta's Cannabis Authority. The authority is responsible for regulating the associations that cultivate and distribute cannabis to their members. They also have a duty to run educational campaigns on the responsible use of cannabis based on facts, while offering clear and impartial information about the risks. The board was made up of a number of people. What immediately stuck out to me was the absence of representation from local NGOs like Relief and groups that pushed for legalization. So while they weren't elected to this board, obviously they are watching very closely what is going to be done and the way that this is going to be handled. I also think all of Europe is watching, because this is setting a precedent for them as well. I actually know Mariela Demek a little bit in a Pamela, different part of my life. I know her as a very kind person, a very emphatic person. She's very fun, she's reasonable. I think she's a good leader for this. She also has a lot of experience with Caritas, so she kind of understands drug misuse. She also conducted a lot of studies into substance misuse, and I think being able to differentiate between use and misuse will sort of guide her on her job to regulate this new body. What do you think, Tim?
Some members of the cannabis community have already started voicing some concerns given a long association with Caritas, which, while of course it does some great work with drug addicts, was also one of the major voices against this crucial reform. And there are other people on the board who also had worked with the likes of Caritas and other NGOs as well. So while I think it's way too early to judge them from now or to really to criticize anything, I would like to urge them not to try and stifle this reform through over-regulation, because that would just be extremely unfair and defeat the entire scope and purpose of the law. Moving on, the Malta International Airport has taken a very strong and very public stance against the upcoming new travel rules, which will come into force on 17th January, which are specifically for holders of Maltese vaccine certificates. And yeah, it's a bit silly. And they're basically saying that to avoid quarantine upon your return to Malta, you need to have taken either the initial vaccine cycle within the past 3 months or the booster shot within the past 9 months. The airport is pointing out that these rules are placing it at a very significant disadvantage compared to other European airports, which to date are all accepting the vaccination certificate validity period as stipulated by the European Commission, which is 9 months for the first cycle and no stipulation for the booster yet. So the airport is saying, we urge the health authorities to halt the introduction of further unnecessary and haphazard travel restrictions which go against the spirit of the EU to facilitate free movement, which is absolutely correct. And yeah, I really hope that the authorities see some sense and scrap these new rules before they come into force on 17 January, because what it's also going to do, and which isn't really being spoken out enough, is discriminate against their own citizens, right? Because you can have somebody who was vaccinated with the first cycle in Europe 5 months ago and can come into Malta and not go into quarantine, but if it's the same as with the Maltese person, they have to go into quarantine, which for me, I've yet to see any proper explanation as to why this is happening.
Yeah, and this is it. There's no real explanation being given as to why these directives were put in place. I think the word haphazard is very apt here. I think the new restrictions, unfortunately, there seems to be a lot of gaps. There are a lot of questions. There are a lot of people on the street. You talk to people are asking a lot of questions because there are a lot of gaps. There's a lot of information that is not being communicated properly, especially when it comes to people who've already contracted the disease, have obviously expired their initial vaccine cycle, are not eligible for the booster yet because you have to wait a certain amount of time. Where do they fall, sort of, in this restriction framework? So hopefully we'll see some sort of, either we'll get some answers or maybe the whole thing will be scrapped, Tim, and the rest of Europe will follow. Moving on, Maltese explorer Pierre Farrugia has called for the preservation of Our Saviour's Gate, which serves as the facade of a chapel in Kalkara. This gate was built in 1724, and it's part of the fortifications built by the knights in the 1600s. It houses a beautiful chapel with original frescoes, and there is a giant hole in the ceiling where a bomb fell in World War II. It really is a part of living history. It's something that should be preserved and something that can be used, as part of educational programs for children, and also as part of, the tourist route for people who come to visit. The fortifications were built to house animals and people when they were hiding from the Ottomans. I mean, it really is a significant part of our history, and I think that it's something that should be taken care of. We find so much money to invest in so many things that I'm sure there is a fund there that can be used to preserve this chapel. Pierre Farrugia is also from Calcara, so it's quite close to his heart.
Yeah, and one of some of these cases where probably keeping it, when you say preserved, as in you should keep it with the damage left by the bomb intact, to really remind people of the harm caused by the Second World War. Now we're moving closer into a world where not many people were alive during the Second World War, just the last major war in Europe. So it is important to keep these memories alive, so that ultimately they never end up repeating themselves. And finally, Malta's Eurovision hopefuls have released 20-second teasers of the songs that they have submitted for this year's competition. Several entries, it's going to be a semi-final, and then they'll qualify to the final. We haven't had a Eurovision song contest like this in Malta for quite a few years because of X Factor and because of the pandemic. 20 seconds in March, to be honest, you don't really get a good sense of the song while listening to it. But it is a fun teaser, so which gives you a small sense of where the artist's minds are at. There are some very big names competing this year. Two of the early favourites, just by virtue of who they are Emma Muscat and Aiden. I'm really looking forward to this.
Aiden was our winner at the social media awards for best song. Other than the songs themselves, I just love the whole spectacle of Song for Europe. I just think it's so much fun. I love watching, the performers on stage and the build up to it and the voting and everything. It's just, it's a piece of feel-good content, and I just love getting involved with all of it. So I'm a fan and I can't wait to see.
That's right. We're now going to interview Michael Bonello and Christabelle Camilleri from Shark Tank Malta. And we're just going to cut to a break, and we'll be with you soon. Welcome back to Lovin Daily. With me now are two sharks from the new show Shark Tank Malta. A lot of people are talking about it. It's a business reality show, and the sharks are investors who will invest in real ideas put forward by entrepreneurs. And the sharks we have with us today are Christabelle Camilleri, CEO of the VNC Group, You might know her from the Eurovision Song Contest, but since then, she's
It's past.
since then she's been making a name for herself as a very successful businesswoman. And we also have Michael Bonello, CEO of Alliance Real Estate, one of the biggest real estate companies in the country. So,
and an investor.
And an investor as well, which will definitely come in handy. So, Shark Tank Malta, it's happening. The first ever season is going to be airing in a few months. When do you want to become a shark investor?
Should I start? Okay. To tell you the truth, it was my nephew who introduced me to the producers the first time. I was a bit hesitant. I mean, it wasn't something, I accepted immediately. Then after taking serious consideration, I said, why not? And now here I am today, looking forward, and let's make it happen.
When I got the call from the producers, I didn't know what it was about, and said, do you have time to meet tomorrow? And they immediately told me what it's about, and I said yes immediately. for the reason that I'm really looking forward to helping and guiding others into growing their business and making that business more successful than it already is, and creating more employment, which is something that is very important to me.
Mm-hmm. So, are you a fan of the American or the international versions and spin-offs of Shark Tank? There's also Dragon's Den in the UK. And if so, who is your favorite international shark?
In the past, I had seen a few sessions, my series myself. It's great, to see when you find entrepreneurs ready to help, people who probably banks are not in a position, to help out. So, yes, when it comes to the sharks I prefer, I think Kevin O'Leary is a nice guy, down to earth, and obviously there's Barbara Kurakan, who's in the real estate sector, so I can't say anything against that. That's for sure.
Yes, I'm a fan of the show. I have a bucket list in my life, and one of the bucket list items was to get a deal with Mark Cuban.
Oh wow, okay.
But now I'm a shark myself. Maybe I can still get a deal with him, not on Shark Tank, but we can work something out through Sony, given that it's obviously... no, but he's my favorite shark. I live by his philosophy: outwork everybody else, be creative, be smarter, and you'll succeed. Amazing.
So, what kind of pitches are you hoping to see on the show? So, some examples in the US, we've famously seen the rise of the sponge crab daddy that arose through Shark Tank extremely well. In Dragon's Den in the UK, we've seen the reggae sauce. This guy came in, says, I have this sauce on offer, and now you can buy it off the shelves in supermarkets. What are you expecting to see in Malta?
First and foremost, I'm expecting to see interesting pitches, credible, professional, funny. So, I mean, and the person knows their business. It's very important that that the person, obviously selling their idea, knows their business very well, and that the business is scalable. One of the most famous products that were available on Shark Tank, and nobody invested in it, is the ring, which is one of the most successful alarm and fire systems available in America. So it's very important that if someone's going to come with an idea, I'm really interested in investing in products, because I have a passion for product development, one of the areas that our companies are working on at the moment, and I'm interested in tech, even though I'm not an expert in the field, but yes, I could help them with business development and everything else.
Yeah.
Well, basically, I feel that any sort of pitch, I think if it's something, which hits my interest, and it's obviously the numbers are right, I mean, I'll be really seriously consider going for it.
So
I'm
doesn't-
interested in also partnering up with other sharks like Michael.
Okay, okay.
Obviously,
Okay, it's interesting. I'm
obviously.
not sure if that's part of the rules though.
Yes,
No, it
yes,
is,
yes,
it
Oh,
we
you
is.
can.
can
We
as
can.
well, okay.
All of us can invest on a single product. So
Okay, okay,
Or
all right.
on a
That's
single pitch,
That's
so,
interesting.
yeah.
And so, just to clarify, does it have to be a specific product, or can it be something a bit more general, like even property-based, for example?
no, I think anyone
We
would
can't
yes.
think. We don't know what the pitches are yet, but
And we're not told.
nothing at all. But what we know that there are some interesting pitches coming up, and we're really looking forward.
I am.
So, what will actually make you invest? Because this is your real money that's going into it. Is it the character and the motivation of the entrepreneur himself or herself, or is it the detail that goes into the business plan that they'll be presenting?
So for me, the person presenting the pitch needs to be able to sell his own product. So that's really important, because if he can't sell the product or she can't sell her own product or service, then how am I going to sell it?
Has to be
Exactly.
enthusiastic about what he's selling, you know,
And committed.
and we're ready to help, you know, if somebody believes in his product and is ready to push his product forward. We are there ready to make it happen at the end.
Something that I'm looking for, which is really important, because obviously this is hard-earned money we're investing, is that the product is defensible and it's not easily copied. So,
Wow.
because I mean, if I have if I have the funds to invest in that business and that business is easily copied, I can go and do it myself tomorrow. I will not do it, but someone else can do it, if you know what I mean.
Someone who isn't on the show.
Exactly. You know, so I feel that that's important. Having good negotiating skills, but they have to be realistic, and that the profit margin is already good enough.
Yeah.
So if a product is being sold for 20 euros, so to speak, and it's costing them 15 to produce, that's
Mhm.
because there's the overheads and everything else. So,
Yeah, you just
so
adapt
they need
it.
to know their numbers. It's very important.
All right. And do you have a financial cap in your mind that you won't go beyond?
I'm sure, I mean, we all do at the
Of
end, but
course.
if the pitches are going to be that great, I'm sure we'll manage
It's on
to
a
find.
case-by-case basis as well. So
Yeah.
if there's someone that needs or requires a large number, we'll all pitch in and
Okay.
we'll
okay.
take on the equity together.
That's amazing. And finally, I'm going to close this off with a pitch of my own.
Okay.
Let's test this out. So, okay, it's something that has actually been boiling around in my mind. So, you know, sometimes how you're driving and you just really need to buy just one item, but you know, don't feel like going to a supermarket and parking and trying and searching and driving around. So how about create a drive-through convenience store in key points around the country? Just go in with your car, say I want one milk, some bread, and that's it. And then you just drive
It's a
out.
very good idea. It's a very
But
good
when you see
idea.
the logistics about it, it's not that easy. I mean,
They call it the,
Because to get a permit for a drive-through in Malta, it's very difficult as well.
it'll be called the convenience
And with
store.
with obviously traffic impact assessment going into place, it's not easy, but it's a good idea. What's your valuation on it?
20,000 euro for 10% of the business, and I'm being very generous.
Yeah. How did you come up with that valuation?
I can show you the business thing and
Okay,
show you
that's
the business
that-
plan.
that's
Everything.
he's seen a few sessions.
It includes the traffic impact assessment.
Okay, very good.
That's it. So thank you so much, Michael and Christabelle,
Thank
and
you for
I'm
having
really
us.
looking forward to watching the show. When is it going to air? In April, right?
Yes, filming will be
Filming
starting
end of
soon.
February, and it will.
It will air
March.
end of April, I think.
And the deadline for new applicants is.
I don't think there is a deadline. I think they're still receiving
Yeah.
applications. The production team are working really hard on these pitches, and they're going to be coached by really good people as well. So it's a really good opportunity for everyone, and it's very important to know that it's the best PR they can get for their business.
For sure. And if we're not ready to pitch in certain projects,
Exactly, Malta Enterprise.
there's Malta Enterprise, who's the main sponsor of the
Exactly.
of Shark Tank Malta. So it
And the
doesn't
main
mean that
partners,
if we are
exactly.
not there to accept and proceed, they also have a second opportunity with Malta
Malta
Enterprise.
Enterprise as well. So
That's amazing. So if you're an entrepreneur listening to this could be your chance to get your dream turn your dream actually into reality on Shark Tank Malta. That's it from us today. Make sure you follow lovinmalta.com for all the latest developments and have an evening full of lovin'.